Hi there, Salena Kulkarni here with another episode of the Alternative Investing Podcast. My mission is to help business owners build high-performance wealth that delivers reliable, predictable cash flow through unconventional strategies so they can fast-track their path to financial freedom. Each week I share with you the strategies, expert interviews, and real people's stories around the topic of wealth and financial freedom. And if you're a business owner who wants to learn more about financial freedom through alternative methods, please head over to my website, freedomwarrior.com.au, where you can access my library of articles, interviews, and programs to help you on your way to becoming more financially free. Hey guys, welcome to another episode. I'm super excited about today's topic. Some of you have asked me to unpack a little more deeply the framework that we use in Freedom Warrior to kind of, identify the 9 core areas that it's important to focus on if we want to be successful and if we want to think like professional investors. You know, I've been super lucky. I've managed to spend a lot of time with people who in my world are top of their game, meaning they are world-class thinkers, they get world-class results, they have the results that I want in my world. And what's been one of the best side benefits of all of that is, opportunity to discern not only what qualities they have, but how do they organize information in their heads? How do they plug the holes around content and ideas that they don't have in order to really be a very balanced investor? And, I've kind of patched a lot of different people's thinkings together in order to create what I call the Freedom Warrior framework. And, when I'm creating content, when I'm creating IP inside of my program, I'm always looking to see how does it fit into each of one of these 9 boxes. And I'm making sure that there's a balanced level of emphasis on each of those accelerators. If I step back for a moment, I kind of want to give you the context for how I designed the wordings and the thinking behind the framework. And some of you who have read my book will already know a little bit about this, but the framework that we have designed is very much based on the metaphor of the parable of the pipeline. So the parable of the pipeline is that very simple story of, the 2 guys who want to bring water from the nearby village. One guy carries buckets of water and the other one develops a pipeline. And I guess my comment about the parable is it's a great story and it illustrates the importance of building a pipeline of passive income when it comes to creating financial freedom. But what the story doesn't really do is tell us, well, how do we go about doing that? So the framework is really about how do we kind of understand all of the projects and, design how and what we consume in order to give us the outcomes that we want. Now, at the simplest level, I know that what people are trying to achieve is they want financial freedom. Business is often the vehicle that we choose to get us where we want to go. But ultimately, a big part of why people go into business is they want to develop financial freedom. They want to take the limits off the amount of money they can earn. They want to leverage their time and amplify resources. And they're interested in the concept of legacy, meaning how do they create wealth and have it continue to influence people, causes, things they care about for many years ahead, rather than just creating a lump of capital that gets frittered away within a short space of time. The reason I reference that is because I want people to understand that from my perspective, there are 3 primary projects or 3 primary areas that you need to focus on if you do want to step up into the world of being a more professional investor. So the first is you need to build a pipeline blueprint. This needs to really tell us, how do we allocate resources? How do we manage our personal finances? The stewardship of the money that we have? How do we deploy capital and time investments so that we move from being really random and maybe a bit opportunistic to being more methodical and more mindful about our investing. The second area that we really need to focus on is developing alternative sources. So what we want to do with our investments is we want to build high continuous flow of income. And frankly, most investors don't do a great job of that. And they do take many decades to get where they want to go. Developing multiple ways of approaching your investments, multiple strategies, understanding the risks and returns across different asset classes, and then making sure that you choose strategies and investments that actually are going to get you to where you want to go in the most direct manner and with the least amount of risk. And then the third area of focus when we're talking about being a professional investor is what I refer to as become the captain. Become the captain is really about how are you structuring your wealth so that it lasts, and how do you then use that wealth to influence the outcomes for other people, places, things that you care about. Because the thing is, even if you doubled your capital that you've got today, imagine if you woke up tomorrow and you doubled it. Most people wouldn't actually know what to do with it, to turn it into income streams that they could live off and that would endure beyond their own lives. So they're the three big picture things. And now within each of those three, there are three sub-core strategies that you have to use in order to really kind of go deep on each of these. So if we first of all look at the first one that I talked about, which is the blueprint for your pipeline. If we go back to our parable of the pipeline metaphor, imagine trying to use a garden hose to fill a dam. You know, there's a trickle, but it's slow. And if you're not in a hurry, that might be completely tolerable. But, you know, if you're like me and you're impatient and you want to get where you want to go faster, then if you take the time to step back and design a more substantial pipe that will fill the dam more quickly, obviously the dam will get where it needs to be faster, and you can then get on with other projects in your life. The elements that really form the foundation for how you go about building your pipeline blueprint are, you know, to do with, you know, making sure, first of all, you have an absolute crystal clear understanding of what your vision is. So the first project that I really encourage people to embrace is you need to unpack your quantified vision. I think people are very much guilty of saying, I want to be wealthy at some point in the future, but they don't really express what that means. Maybe they have a vision of who they would be and what they might do, but unpacking a quantified vision is being absolutely crisp and precise about the how much and by what point. And you know, a lot of people hear me talk about your freedom number. If you don't have a very clear understanding of your target capital base and the rate of return that you want, it's very hard to actually achieve financial freedom. So that is very much the starting point, this unpack the quantified vision. The second piece of building your pipeline blueprint is what I call installing sustainable strategy. Now, installing sustainable strategy is really about looking at the investment opportunities that are available to you and actually categorically ruling something in or out as a fit or not. What that allows you to do is then really become laser focused with the investments that you will and won't consider. And I cannot tell you the number of times I have worked with investors who have a portfolio full of investments, properties and otherwise that are completely misaligned with where they're trying to go. And unfortunately, they've been swept along by somebody else's opinion, or maybe they were convinced by some professional that that particular strategy was a good idea. And I think this goes back to why I'm such a huge advocate that regardless of whether you leverage the expertise of others or not, the one thing that you can never ever outsource is the decision-making power around your investments. You need to retain control, and if you don't value control, you will absolutely dilute the impact of your outcomes. So installing sustainable strategy is about really just, as I said, being crystal clear about the strategies that are and are not a fit for you. The third component of building your pipeline blueprint is implementing elegant execution. Now, I know this sounds really strange, but if you do not have the right structures and support, if you don't move money in the right way, if you do not make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's, often the execution of investment deals can become difficult. It can be easy to make mistakes. And so this concept of how do you make sure you spin all the plates so that you can acquire and offload investments as needed in a frictionless way is what I really mean when I'm talking about elegant execution. There are so many people who, for various reasons, they don't get their ducks in a row, and then everything becomes frenetic and it becomes, a race to buy assets or investments. Often you operate from a place of someone who puts their investment journey on the back burner and then rushes because they don't want to miss out, and they operate from a place of FOMO, or fear of missing out, or FONGO, fear of not getting out. There are so many aspects to, elegant execution, but implementation of an elegant execution plan is crucial and one that many, many people overlook. If we move now to our second primary area for focus, which is developing alternate sources, really the first sub-strategy or sub-project in this space is find alternative opportunities. If I go back to my metaphor, as the developer and owner of your pipeline, it is so important that you examine where you are drawing water from. Are you just going down to the local lake where everybody else is focused or sitting trying to draw water from? And the problem with that obviously is if that lake runs dry, if the quality of the water deteriorates, if anything happens to that water, you are stuck because you have no other sources to draw water from. So what you need to do is either wait patiently for a change of season or look for other opportunities that maybe sit in a completely different space. The way I like to describe it is perhaps if you just walked over the hill and up onto the new mountain range, you might find there's another huge lake up there or another river going past. And if you take the time to understand all of your alternatives when it comes to investing, you can tap into those as well. And really, from a risk perspective, obviously that helps you diversify, but it mitigates predominantly against changing conditions. I think the issue of water security and investing security is about making sure that you can zig and zag when you need to. And the only way that you can do that safely is to educate yourself on what else is available to you. I know in my own experience, the opening up of this space of alternative investments, as I describe them, was unbelievable. It was a complete game changer. It went from being hard and difficult to acquire new assets that would often give me very little juice in the first few years, through to just being able to transact and accumulate properties that gave epic cash flow really fast. And for those of you who have been investors for some time, perhaps you can understand the gravity of what I'm saying. Like it's just such a different experience when you can actually see money dropping into your bank account day after day simply because you have the knowledge and expertise in an area of investing which most people don't know about. Let's kind of find alternative opportunities. The next kind of sub-strategy within that develop alternate sources is install mindful diversification. Now, I talk to people all the time who rabbit on about diversification. But as I've said in other podcast episodes, installing mindful diversification is not just about geography. It's not just about saying, well, I invested in WA, so now I'm going to invest in South Australia or, any other state. Mindful diversification is about looking at all facets of the investment that you carry. How liquid is it? Where is it geographically? How is the deal running? What is my commitment? Liquidity points. How easy is it to turn over? There's so many different ways of thinking about diversification, and it's about strategy, it's about asset class. That is a whole hour podcast in itself. But diversification, and sorry if I just repeated myself, but it's really about saying, what are my primary investing objectives? And then marrying that with what is my life reality. If my life reality is that I don't earn as much money as I would like, but for example, that you need to keep a reasonable buffer, then perhaps what you might do is lean into at least a small percentage of your portfolio, investments which can be liquidated very quickly and which may also give you the cash flow, but you're not locked in for a period of time. So duration of investment is also a consideration. But installing mindful diversification is actually about saying, what are my needs? What are my goals? what are the opportunities I have available to me, and how do I marry that with the capital I have available? And then being very clear about how you're going to structure so that you don't get locked into a whole bunch of investments where there's huge pain around entry and exit. Obviously, risk in terms of being spread across as many different sources of income as possible and sources of capital growth as possible is super valuable. But the more diversified you are, particularly when it comes to economic turbulence, if you are investing in assets where they have very little movement through high volatile economic conditions, then again, that gives you another level of immunity. So it's really about not only looking at diversification for the sake of it, but also understanding how much of your portfolio is exposed to investments which rely on an upward market. What percentage of your investments rely on momentum and so forth. So you really, I could go on and on about it, but just investing mindfully, understanding what is your investment composition, what do you want it to be, where are the discrepancies, and how do you shift from where you are to where you want to be. The final sub-project inside of this particular project around develop alternative sources is around developing protected navigation. Now, if you are investing in areas of the economy or markets where maybe you're not as familiar or maybe they're less mainstream, you need to develop really good ways of making sure you can distinguish between a good deal and a bad deal. Unfortunately, the average Australian and New Zealander who is super passionate about property and shares, they're often influenced by what they read. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people, publications, and media sources which you need to almost have a healthy level of skepticism around, because unfortunately a lot of them have a vested interest in what they want you to invest in. So developing protected navigation is about, yes, finding the right people to support and advise your journey, but developing your own rules for investing so that you don't end up in a situation where someone just puts something in front of you and you go, yeah, that looks okay, let's go, without knowing the asset, knowing the deal maker or the advisor, and not necessarily applying any investment rules to things that you take on. It truly breaks my heart when I meet business owners who have worked their asses off to develop a really, great business, and then they've unfortunately been led down different paths to invest in assets that were clearly a mismatch for them. And because they didn't have a set of rules to apply to working out whether, those investments were a good fit or not, they've ended up carrying lemons or underperforming assets that have not only slowed them down, but harmed them in terms of hitting goals and even just springboarding into other assets. So that's kind of the three key pieces around develop alternative sources. So it's find alternative opportunities, install mindful diversification, and develop protected navigation. So that's that second project. That takes us to our final kind of area of focus, which is become the captain. Now, becoming the captain, as I said, is really about how do we use the wealth that we're creating to influence others. And to be frank, the word legacy, all it means is using wealth or knowledge or wisdom to influence other people. And I want to really emphasize this. When it comes to building wealth, the wealth itself is only one part of the legacy equation. How much you leave behind personally, in my opinion, is less important than the knowledge and the wisdom that you pass on in order for future generations, recipients, causes that you care about, for them to understand how to keep that pipeline flowing. Some of you may have heard me speak, and I like to tell the story of the two brothers who, one went on to create massive wealth and the other one decided to become a school teacher and it very much had a more modest existence. But the one who had very little income did a much better job of teaching stewardship and investing to his children. And so the kids of the school teacher went on to, achieve great things in their lives, and the children of the very wealthy brother actually frittered the money away and it was gone within a decade. So, this concept of become the captain isn't just about how much wealth you create and what you leave behind. It's about How do you use your role as the captain to help people understand what it is going to take to keep that pipeline going? So in order to succeed, it's really important that you elevate your thinking. So from the viewpoint of the parable of the pipeline again, or the water metaphor, this component of your journey is about examining ways to improve the strength and capacity of your pipeline. What are the best materials? What's the best way to kind of surround yourself with experts that you're going to need to support that ongoing flow? So this is about developing your thinking, surrounding yourself with people who understand best practice, and, finding the weaknesses in the way that you have built your pipeline to really give it the best chance for enduring. So if I think about the 3 sub-projects or the 3 strategies within Become the Captain, the first one is leverage an elite network. Now, you guys hear me say this over and over and over. It isn't what you know, it is absolutely who you know. The point in my life where I started to stop chasing deals myself and leverage people who had the results that I wanted, who could show me insights, who could connect me to opportunities that I just wasn't going to be able to find by myself. That's when I started to 10x my results. And I cannot emphasize that enough. It's probably the thing that has had the single greatest impact on the results I've had over the last 12 years. So leveraging your elite network is about going out there and finding the people who have the results that you want, and then using their wisdom, their experience, their networks to help you speed up the results that you're getting, amplify the results that you're getting. Now, I want to really emphasize, leveraging an elite network isn't always about finding people that you pay as advisors. Some of the best mentors I have had over the last 25 years have been the quiet, unassuming investors who are just getting on with it. And really, they're the people who, they don't want anything. They're sometimes flattered that you want to ask them for help. And look, if you are starting out, or if you just really want to work out how to make an impact on your wealth holistically, go out there and find the people who have the results that you want and find a way to be in their world. It's as simple as that. Get good at making friends, genuine friendships with people who, will be with you for the long haul. And certainly, I don't have anything bad to say about buyer's agents or financial planners specifically, other than to say, make sure that they are in alignment with where you're trying to go in your life. Make sure they have context, and think about it this way. You want to align with people who are getting exceptional results, not just people who can help you find your next deal or who will show you how to squirrel away money and rely on compound interest to get you to where you need to be by age of 65. They're not the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about find the people who genuinely have the experience and access to finding a more efficient and powerful way to getting the goals that you want. So I won't say any more about that, but leverage elite network is an absolute essential component for developing as a professional investor. The second project inside of Become the Captain is elevate your money wisdom. I definitely feel that the lost art of stewardship is something that if people gave more attention to, they could really, really have a huge impact on their overall investing results. Elevating money wisdom is about making sure that you build a great relationship with money, that you set yourself up and stack the odds for success. There are no guarantees in life, absolutely, and I completely understand that, but there are plenty of things that you can do as an investor to stack the odds in your favor. And what I would say to you is that not enough people, especially those who earn good money, spend the time to understand how to have a great relationship with money. And I guess the best example of this that I can give is I meet super successful business people all the time who have killer incomes and they have a terrible relationship with money, either because they've experienced some loss in the past and they haven't digested that properly, or they haven't understood how to regain their footing so that they don't make that mistake again. There are people I meet who have fabulous incomes, but who really, operate from a place of scarcity. So they really struggle with trust and they really struggle with the idea that they actually have enough. They just need to tweak what they're doing to work a little harder for them. So yeah, elevate your money wisdom. So much good stuff in that. And then the final piece that sits with inside of Become the Captain is what I call build a robust rudder. There's so much in this, but this is really going deep on the legacy piece. What are all the tools? What are all the ways that you can structure in order to stack the odds in your favor as far as making sure your wealth lasts? There are too many people who spend their lives building a huge capital base and then they just pass it on and hope for the best. And it's not so much that they don't care, but they don't know what are all the opportunities available to them to kind of structure in a way that, you know, that recipients actually have a hope in hell of making it continue to survive and grow. There's so much good stuff here. There are family investment charters. There are concepts that you can put in place. There are rules for participating in the wealth that you've created. There's so much good stuff. And I don't really want to go too deep today, other than to say legacy is an idea. The idea is, how do I take the resources that I have and, I guess to some degree, pay it forward? And for those of you who care about the financial futures of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, those of you who care about planet Earth, animals, causes, different things like that. This legacy piece is really important because imagine $1 that you invest today still working to change the world for the better, to have a bigger impact than just being spent by the recipient after you're not around anymore. It's a really different framework. And so, you know, this final piece around building a robust rudder is really, it's complex, and it's probably the final piece that people come to when they realize they have enough, when they realize that the income coming off their investments is way more than they need in order to maintain their lifestyle. So guys, I just want to do a quick recap. So inside of, you know, build your pipeline blueprint, we had unpack quantified vision, install sustainable strategy, and implement elegant execution. The second piece, which was around develop alternative sources, we had find alternative opportunities, install mindful diversification, and develop protected navigation. And then the final piece was become the captain. And that's about leveraging an elite network, elevating your money wisdom, and finally building a robust rudder. What I would encourage everyone to do is consider those 9 elements, those 9 projects, and really ask yourself a good hard question. Are you totally great on each of those pieces? Are you green? Are you amber, meaning maybe you've done some work, but there's opportunities to go deeper? Or are you a red? Is it an area of opportunity for you? Is there an opportunity for you to learn more, go deeper, implement some ideas to actually bring that element or that project into your world? So that was a lot of content today. Yeah, look, I'd encourage anyone who is interested. The very first piece I mentioned, unpack quantified vision, has to be the cornerstone for building out the rest of your vision and your plan to implement everything else. So if you are interested in understanding your freedom formula, unpacking that quantified vision, then I encourage you to get in touch. I'm more than happy to help people who are genuinely looking for a better pathway to developing wealth and helping them understand how to go about doing that. So anyway, guys, that's all I'm going to say for this time. Until next time, take care. Thanks so much for listening to the Alternative Investing Podcast. If you're a business owner feeling frustrated that despite doing everything right in the property investing playbook and you're no closer to financial freedom, then head over to freedomwarrior.com.au to learn more about how you can use alternative investments to catapult your investing income and blend strategies to shave decades off your timeline to financial freedom. Till next time, take care. See you on the next episode, and bye for now.